I wanted to set myself the task of writing about it from 4 different perspectives that would be equally understandable. Which doesn't mean that the 4 people are equally likable. I don't think they are necessarily, but I felt when I was writing each one, Flaubert says, Madame Bovary, c'est moi. I felt that I was each character as I was writing each character, and I actually loved writing the men, which I didn't know I could do. I hadn't done it before, but I found that I really understood what these guys were feeling as I was writing what they were feeling, and I felt that I was present in every character in a funny way. I felt that I really was each character as I was doing it. So that was a terrific challenge for me. I also wanted to write about the things that people don't tell other people. I wanted to write about the feelings people have that they won't easily confess. So that process for me took some time to go down the layers of understanding what my characters were feeling, and not resting when I wasn't quite getting at it. It took a while to get at it sometimes. And one of the fabulous challenges for me was that the book goes forward in time chronologically, and so the characters are 4 characters and they move forward in time, so I couldn't really go back. I was telling the story as it moved forward, but what I loved about it was that a breakup scene, for example, would be told from one person's perspective, and you wouldn't really get the other perspective on it, but you would hear later what that person experienced afterwards. It enabled me to have a kind of panoramic vision for this book that I hadn't tried to do before. It was a more ambitious book than my other books. And in the end, hard one as it is, or perhaps because of that, it's my proudest accomplishment because it took so long, and I felt that not everybody's going to like this book or like these people. You're not, and not everyone will, and you won't like all of them certainly. But I wrote the book that I wanted to write, and that's a really exciting thing to do. Okay, it took a long time, but I did in the end write the book that I wanted to write. I'm just going to read a tiny bit. I'm just going to read you the very beginning, and then I'll take questions, and you can go have some more wine. The book starts in the perspective of Allison, who's, it'll become clear to you, but it moves forward, as I said, through everyone, all these 4 characters. Allison, who's a housewife, I guess, sort of in New Jersey with her young children, her husband Charlie, Allison's best friend Claire, who lives in the city, and Claire's husband Ben. So it begins and ends with this character of Allison. And by the way, my husband, I read this in another event, and Dave said I should try to find something a little lighter to read, but I didn't. I know you're right. Let me just okay. For Allison, these things will always be connected. The moment that cleaved her life into 2 sections, and the dawning realization that even before the accident, her life was not what it seemed. In the instant it took the accident to happen, and in the slow motion moments afterward, she still believed that there was order in the universe, that she'd be able to put things right. But with one random error, built on dozens of mistakes of judgment, she stepped into a different story that seemed for a long time to have nothing to do with her. She watched as if behind one-way glass, as the only life she recognized slipped from her grasp. This is what happened. She killed a child. It was not her own child. He was not her own child, her own boy, her own 3-year-old son. She was on her way home from a party where she'd had a few drinks. She pulled out into an intersection. The other car went through a stop sign, and she didn't move out of the way. It was as simple as that, and as complicated. I'm just going to read you 2 more paragraphs that are from a little bit later. She called her husband from the hospital and told him about the accident, about the car being totaled and her injured wrist. But she didn't tell him that all around her, doctors and nurses were barking orders, and the swinging doors were banging open and shut, and a small boy was at the center of it. A small boy with a broken skull and a blood-spattered t-shirt, but Charlie knew soon enough. She had to call him back to tell him not to come to the hospital. She was now at the police station, and there was silence for a moment, and then he said, "Oh, God," and whatever numbness she'd had was stripped away. She flinched, told him, "Don't come," and he said, "What did you do?" It wasn't the response she'd expected. Not that she thought ahead enough to expect anything in particular. She didn't know what to expect. She didn't have a response in mind. But her sudden realization that Charlie was not with her, not reflexively on her side, was so profoundly shocking that she braced for what was next. Anyway, thanks. Yes, I did answer it a little bit, but I think that because of the structure is complicated, and also because, as I said, I was trying to go quite deep with the layers, this book feels like I took a step forward for myself in writing it. I think I got down to the bone of something that in other books I've shied away from. And it's not always beautiful to look at, but it was really exciting for me to figure out what it was that I was really saying about these relationships and these characters. And that felt like it. The male perspective was really fun, in part because one of the fun things about writing novels is that you realize, actually I was just talking about this today in a creative nonfiction class I was teaching, the whole write what you know thing, that really you know so much more than you know, and to cut yourself off from things that scare you because you don't know how much you know about them is foolhardy, I think, when you're a writer. One of my characters is an architect, and actually I dredged all this knowledge up from David. I had a really close friend at Cambridge who was an architect, and I was studying to be an architect. He became one. We talked about it a lot. We had all these long conversations that I thought I had forgotten, and in fact, they came back to me. The way he talked, he was a philosophy major who was studying architecture as a graduate degree, and he was very philosophical in the way he talked about architecture, and I used a lot of that in my character. And I also then wanted to write about someone who was unhappy in his job, the other male character, and I just used years of talking to friends who felt trapped in various ways in their work, and being able to actually write about that was really exciting. And I felt that I just called on a lot of knowledge I didn't know I had. I felt that I had listened for many years. And that was a cool thing, actually, is that not having ever written from a male perspective, I had a lot of years of listening